What's up, everyone? This is James Hernandez. How's everybody doing? And welcome to one of my horror movie review videos. And continuing with my horror movie reviews for the upcoming Halloween season, I'm going to be reviewing the second installment of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And that is, I'm going to be reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now Freddy's Revenge is the second installment of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and it was released in 1985, a year after the first one, even though the film actually took place 5 years after the original. So let's talk about the story of this movie. So this movie begins like with a school bus scene where the kids are actually being dropped off home from school, and then we were introduced to this main character Jesse, who is having a nightmare about Freddy Krueger. And then it turns out that that the bus is actually being controlled by Freddy. So after that scary nightmare, Jesse wakes up and he is now like living in the same house as Nancy from the original. And basically the parents actually decided to rent that house just because it's cheap, which I'm not sure why they wanted to include that house, why they couldn't get like another house that is even cheaper, but oh well. So so basically he's keep like having like really weird nightmares about Freddy Krueger, and things were getting pretty weird when Freddy actually decides to control Jesse, and basically he can possesses him to kill people. And that's basically what's been going on with the second movie. So when it comes to the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, people say that either the fifth one, The Dream Child, or Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare were like one of the worst. But as for this one, they said it's pretty much like divisive or divisive, if that's the right word. And they said that Freddy's Revenge is actually not one of the best sequels in horror. Now, but as for me, after when I watched Freddy's Revenge, what do I think of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge? To me, though, I think it's a very mediocre sequel. Now, I'm not saying it's one of the worst, but it's not as good as the original, and it's not one of the greatest sequels ever made. And I'll explain to you why. One of my main problems with the movie, it's the tone. Again, I'm not going to get into too many details because you have to watch the film to yourself and probably use your imagination. But the other thing I really did not like about this movie is that while Robert Englund did a very good job playing Freddy Krueger, and his character actually does stay true to how he was in the original film, even though in the original film he was a little silly. But what I really like about Freddy Krueger in this movie is that I like how serious and scary that he can actually be, especially like when he was trying to hunt down and possess the main character Jesse. And I still think that Robert Englund was really good. The only problem I have is that they don't really give him a lot of screen time. He doesn't have a lot to do in this movie, where I kind of felt like Freddy was just like a side character where I was thinking to myself, this movie is like a generic like 80s film that only guest stars Freddy Krueger, and not really like a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, which is like I'm trying to cash in with the original. And the other problems I have with the movie is that there's not a lot of what is it like there's not a lot of dream sequences where I thought the movie was going to have, because the dream sequences in the beginning was really good, was really creative, and there was also another dream sequence like at the end, but I'll get into that when I get to the end of the review. So, and yeah, there's not a lot of dream sequences, unfortunately, and that's kind of disappointing. And there's not like a list of kills, which I'm gonna get to the kills later. But as for the characters are not very interesting. I think there is like one character I actually kind of like in this movie, and that is Jesse's girlfriend, Lisa. Now, even though Lisa doesn't really have like a lot to do in the movie, because she's definitely not like how Nancy was in the first movie, but she's the only one who actually believes of like what's been going on with Jesse, and why she is like so curious about like why Jesse is freaking out about Freddy, who is possessing him. And yeah, I think that's about it, because of like I felt like the main, most of the characters are just really not interesting, or they're just kind of unlikable, or I would just say they're just completely weird. And I don't mean good weird, because there are moments in this movie where I was like, what am I watching? And it's one of the weirdest installments I have ever seen. Now it does get really weird at it does get really weird when the rest of the series goes on. But at least with Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, it's more like hilariously bad. This one is not terrible, obviously, but I can't say this movie is like that good, unfortunately. And there was just like a lot of uncomfortable moments, which I'm not going to get into too many details because, like I said, watch the film yourself and then come back to this review, and you know exactly what I mean. So and also there's not a lot of scary things going on, and there's just like a bunch of like uncomfortable, awkward moments, which I was like, okay, you don't really need to do that. So, but anyways, let's talk about the kills. So much like with my previous horror movie reviews, I have like a whole list of kills. So I'm gonna find the screenshot. Okay, so one of my favorite kills in this movie. I'm not gonna go all over the kills because most of the kills in this movie is just uncomfortably weird. But there is actually one. There's actually a the kill scene from Freddy Krueger that I actually really, oh excuse me, that I actually really like, and that is when Freddy was in the pool party and he was attacking a bunch of teenagers. There was one sequence like where one guy was like tries to tell Freddy to calm down and relax, and then he was like, I'm here to help you. Everything's gonna be okay. But then Freddy was like, "Oh, help yourself, you beep!" And then he just like slashed the guy, and then he just like throw him into the to the barbecue thing. And Freddy says this line right here. Yeah, that line is one of my favorite lines from not just from this movie, but also from but also from the entire the entire franchise. So yeah, sorry for lip syncing, guys. So yeah, like the scene like where Freddy Krueger was attacking the teenagers in the pool party is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, much like with the opening sequence in the school bus. And now at the end of the movie, where Jesse's girlfriend was going after Freddy, who possessed Jesse, to the power plant, and there were some really bad effects in that scene where after when Lisa actually just got to the power plant after she just come out of her car, there was like these two dogs with two human faces, which is really weird, and it's so kind of disgusting. And I was just like, no, get that off the screen. And it turns out that these faces on these dogs, one, it was actually the coach, which I think is the worst character in the movie, and the other guy, which is Ron, who's obviously the guy that has to look over Jesse when Jesse was telling him that that Freddy is actually controlling him, and he has to look after him. So, and that's before Ron got killed off. So during the climax of the movie, Lisa actually defeats Freddy and saves Jesse's life by kissing Freddy's lips, and I was like, really? No, I'm okay. So then, like, after when she kisses Freddy, Freddy's face starts to melt, and then half of Freddy's dead skin actually comes off, and then Jesse is alive. And then things were going very well at the end of the movie until like Freddy's glove actually comes out of the woman's chest, and it turns out that Freddy is alive. And then it actually ends like right where the first what like not the first right where the beginning of the movie actually begins with the nightmare bus sequence. Now that ending was actually really confusing because I was like, I mean, not only that it kind of reminds me of like the ending from the first one, but it also reminds me, but it also not well not reminds me, but it's like it makes me ask like, is Jesse actually dreaming again, or is it in the real world or something like that, or is it like, I don't know. It just comes off as like very unexplained, and it's just really not the best way to end the movie. So yeah, overall, I mean, there's not much I can say about Freddy's Revenge. It's not one of my favorite installments of the franchise. It's not terrible. I don't think it's bad, but it's definitely not the best installment. I do think that the better Nightmare on Elm Street movie is actually the first movie, Dream Warriors and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I also enjoy Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare is actually like my guilty pleasure, which I know that film is terrible, but it's actually like hilariously entertaining bad. This movie, I don't think it's like the best installment of the series. I don't hate it as many people would say it is, but I don't think this movie doesn't really hold up as the first one. So if you're a fan of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and if you really want to see a sequel to this movie, I actually would say this is actually the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and pretty much like the second movie that I review on my channel, where I would say I personally just don't recommend. It's got some really unlikable characters, really over the top, uncomfortable moments. Freddy Krueger doesn't have a lot to do. It has some pretty cool kills, but there's some other kills which I really don't want to get into. Just feels weird, and it just doesn't really hold up as the original film does. I'm sorry. Even coming from a fan who loves A Nightmare on Elm Street, this is actually one of my least favorite installments. So I'm not, like I said, it's not terrible. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not a worthy follow-up to the original. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, an average 5 out of 10. So yeah, so if you really like the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and if you really want to see a sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, then I kind of recommend this movie to, like, I don't know, if you really like the overly tones of like what this movie is trying to do, then I don't recommend it. So I think it's best to just stick with the first movie, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors, as well as Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason. And I kind of recommend Freddy's Dead just because of how like entertainingly bad that film was. So if I had to like think about a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, I would say that Freddy's Revenge is the one that's going to be completely overlooked, unfortunately. So folks, that's pretty much my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. I want to hear from you guys. What did you guys think of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Did you like the tone for the movie that it was playing? Do you wish that there was more dream sequences from this movie? Do you think Rob Ringland deserves better in this movie? And let me know, what is your most and least favorite Nightmare on Elm Street film? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications when I make future videos. And stay tuned that the next horror movie I'm going to be reviewing is It Chapter 2, since I have been getting requests to review that movie after I just reviewed the first chapter of It last October. And also because since the new Welcome to Derry TV show is coming to HBO Max, I am going to be reviewing It Chapter 2. So stay tuned for that one. So guys, I think that's all I got to say for today. Hope you guys enjoy my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. Hope you guys had a great day, and take good care of yourselves.